Hi there, I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome to Reading Plato's Republic Book 1. This is going to be an experiment. I'm experimenting. I've been doing this. I'm going to be doing a reading of this and talking about this. Book 1 is in many ways even though it's part of the Republic and could be read as, it's the introduction of this, often it's also self-contained argument in that sense. Yes, it prefigures into the discussion of the Republic, but in many ways it's a self-contained portion too. So there's a double aspect of the Republic. The Republic is one of those great works. Um, um, I've taught the Republic. I don't like to. I mean, I'm not a. There's two types of people in political theory: the Plato people or the Aristotle. In ancient political thought, you can do it. Okay, there's many types of people. Okay, Romans, but in Greek political thought, in particularly political philosophy, there tends to be two: Aristotelians or Platonists. Right. This is the thing. So, um, I have been more of an I side with Aristotle more than Plato. Okay, this is what the Republic to me is. It's great, but it's not my thing. I think it's fun. It's a better read. It's a better piece of literature. Its writing and its style is much superior to that of the politics. The politics is more like a note. The politics is very rough in that sense. It's disjointed. It lacks beauty. There's not this polished aspect towards it that uh, uh, um, um, it's more like kind of a working through. This is my beginning thing, my thoughts. I'm going through it, and we're going to be doing it. There's some arguments here, but it's not like a gem. Okay, not a polished gem. It's not complete, and it's in many ways it's unfinished. It's tentative. It raises questions that it doesn't really have a chance to answer. It poses questions and answers that, like this. I mean, the Republic is really a dialogue. It is a dialogue in its fundamental sense. It is not a treatise. It's a dialogue in the character. It is a for drama. It's a record. I think it is a reported dialogue. No, it's not reported, but it is kind of a representation of the events that are happening. There's many different types of dialogues. I have to repeat this. I maybe I should give a thing about the types of dialogues. There's one that's there live, like the apology is kind of like it's presented. Sometimes there's reported ones. There's someone reported this. So therefore, the Republic is kind of like if I go look at it, um, it comes across as kind of a real like doing this. So we're going to be looking at book one, and we'll break it up into smaller bits. So today I'm going. It's going to be today's formatic theme will be basically looking from through in book one, of course. Stephanic page. Okay, the Platonic works are divided into called Stephanic pages with usually numbers and then the letter A, B, C, and then sometimes with more scholarly precision is a number. So it's the page, the column, and then the row number. Right. This is how the phonic works, and therefore, unlike Becker numbers, there's usually Becker number does A and B. In Stephanic numbers, there's A, B, C, D, and I think sometimes once in a while E. Um, so this is the structure. So we'll be looking primarily at the lines of the Republic between 327A through 328C, the introduction of of the Republic, which focuses on the meeting of Polemarchus, right? Going to meet Polemarchus. So let's go reduce my screen a little bit so we can go right to this. Okay, maybe is that okay? We'll see like this. So let's go do it. Okay, ready. Now, of course, there's the line of introduction. I'm using Joe Sachs, the translation of it. I would use Bloom normally, but I think my teaching experience. I mean, Bloom's text was written in '68 and he died in '90s, but never really revised it. And the language is kind of dated in that sense. It is kind of word use and and also, and even though Sachs tries to give a little translation, Sachs and are given different schools. Sachs is a well-known love scholar, a tutor at St. John's, and therefore there's this kind of the St. John's approach, as opposed to Bloom Strauss's approach, right? The Bloomian versus Straussian. The Straussian, Bloom's the Straussian reading, and then the Johnnies. Okay, Eva Braun is famous of that, of being one of the big advocates of this kind of a disagreement. There's overlaps again because it's Bloom and Braun are kind of like these competing understandings of Plato. That's because there is this kind of competition between Strauss, who Bloom was a student of, and Eva Braun, who was not a student of that, but became a disciple of that's Klein, Jacob Klein. And Klein and Strauss were very friends. They were both kind of influenced by each other. Um, they both were students together, doctoral students together. Klein was first student of Heidegger, not Strauss. So that's a very interesting discussion. And there's a dispute. They had disagreements. That Strauss thought Klein too moralistic, and Klein was always surprised by this. And there's a very good, interesting discussion called "Giving of Accounts" and a thoughtful, these in the Strauss literature, the Strauss scholarship. There's like this, and Klein has a book on mathematics, a very good book on mathematics, Greek mathematics, and then his Meno book, and then he wrote this book on the famous trilogy of the Theaetetus. Well, is it Sophist, Statesman, and Theaetetus, Sophist, and Statesman, right? The famous trilogy. And a whole bunch of essays that collected by St. Joe. He was very famous, prolific about essays, and he was a very well-known scholar. So why Sachs was one of the people who came out of St. John's. He became famous for his wonderful translations of Aristotle's physics and metaphysics, and then the anima, and then the ethics and politics, rhetoric, and then decided to turn to Plato, and now he's even doing, I think, Homer. I think he did the Iliad. I'm not sure it's Iliad or Odyssey. I think it's Iliad. I think he's the Odyssey as well. So, well, I was hoping he would do, someone like him would do the Plutarch, but too much to ask for. I think he's retired. He's no longer teaching. I'm going to be using his translation of it. It's available on the links below. So let's start off. This is a very short thing. This is the first thing we're going to be looking at, as the beginning of Socrates and from the beginning of the things, right? Socrates begins. This is like I went. Maybe this is Socrates. The whole thing is Socrates' account. So Socrates is giving a report of things that happened yesterday. Okay, I went down yesterday. I went down. This beginning point of the first one. I going down to the Piraeus. The Piraeus again. Remember with Glaucon, the son of Aristotle, to pray to the goddess, waiting at the same time also to see if they were going to hold the festival, since that they were now conducting it for the first time. So the first sentence, that's the first sentence. That I went, yes, it's basically, I went down to the Piraeus. Now, there's a whole thing about the question of what has been going down. Is he going, the image of Odyssey, that going down. We will see this, the whole question of going to the cave later in later books of the Republic. You give the analogy of the cave. So going down to the cave, right? Going to the city. What is the Piraeus? The Piraeus is the port, right? It is the city up is on the hill, and then the port is near the water. The Piraeus was the moving of this, and the alien part. This was where these were originally was the port. This was the people where the strangers were, the aliens. The new people came. Eventually, this became extended into Athens to secure the control of the port. They moved the walls of Athens to surround even the Piraeus, to protect it against that, to secure this. And the Piraeus was the place where the foreigners are. The foreigners, in fact, we have to understand that Clephalus and Polemarchus, and even the three main interlocutors, of Book One are all non-Athenians. They're all strangers. They're all non-citizens. Okay, they're in fact Cephalus and his son Polemarchus. These are from I think Sicily, Syracuse. They're Syracusan exiles, basically wealthy people who were exiled from Syracuse by the Democratic Revolution, and were principally kind of agents helping Alcibiades plot to very much involved in the plot by Alcibiades. Alcibiades' ambition to attack Syracuse, right, to overthrow the democracy at Syracuse, which is very interesting. A democracy throwing on democracy, wouldn't think that, right? The Syracusan adventure by Alcibiades, and one of the things that people say, Cephalus made his money by selling weapons, providing equipment for the Athenians, for their fights, maybe even been involved with helping provision the attempt to go for the the Syracusan adventure that eventually fails, right? So we have to understand that, therefore, this. Now, I'm not going to read the notes up here from here because this is just his summary, and that's what's so interesting. This is what Bloom doesn't do. Bloom doesn't give summaries. He does. Sach does give a summary of the thing. It's just this. I think this is what he thinks is useful. This is interpretation. This is like this. I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to stick with the text. So we go down to he went down yesterday to the Piraeus, right, with Glaucon, son of Ariston, who's been Ariston's son. That's Plato's brother, right? This is a connection to the brother. And they went to play to the goddess. Why? The god, no, you knew God, wanting at the same time to see in what way they were going to hold the festival, since that this was now conducting it for the first time. The parade of the local residents seemed to me beautiful. And this is Colosse, noble, beautiful, beautiful. While the one that the Thracians put on looked no less appropriate. And having prayed and having seen, we went off towards the city. Now, we went down there. So they went down to the Piraeus. Now he's returning back up to the city, the main city, Athens, up on the city in that sense. So they went to see the spectacle, the festival of a new goddess coming in, a new goddess being installed. A new goddess for the first time. A new god is something anew. In other words, they went to pray to the goddess. Now, in this sense, he's showing at one level we see Socrates who's engaging in piety. This is a new goddess being the city is installing. So Socrates is showing not only his piety by doing this, there was going and what? Going to the event, right? Might have went there because it was going to be beautiful. He was curious about it, right? He wanted to see the way they were going to hold the festival. So his curiosity brings him time because this is a new thing, something new. So his curiosity went him to Martin brought down there. But then he doesn't go to see watching. What he says. In other words, he's and having prayed and having seen. So he mentions prayer first. He went and prayed, then seen. Now he's going back to the city, right? And then he starts out, spotting us from a distance. Then as we headed home, Polemarchus, Cephalus' son, ordered his slave to run and order us to wait for him. So that therefore, as Socrates and his companion Glaucon and Anamentas and other people with him. Adamentus, in other words, Glaucon was primary with him, but Ariston's son. He primary Glaucon, but Adamentus will be his other brother, and someone else may have been there. We don't mention that. We see their names, right? They were going back. They went to the festival. They saw the festival, and that now they're going back, right? They've seen the festival. They prayed. They did their act of civic piety. They prayed to the new goddess. they saw their thing and now returning, their curiosities fulfilled, and they returning to the city, right? But then Polemarchus sees Socrates and sends his slave to get him to stop, right? Now, this is where he ends. In fact, this is the Strauss and the Bloom talks about this, but the coercion. This Socrates. And grabbing me from behind my cloak, the slave said, Polemarchus uh, orders you to await. So a slave goes there and orders him to grab Socrates and says, Polemarchus orders you to wait. I turned around, as Socrates said, Socrates speaking, and asked him where the man himself was. Where is he? Where is he? Right? He's coming along from behind, he said. Just wait. Glaucon, speaking for Socrates, certainly will wait. A little later, in other words, there's a coercion. It's noticed that Socrates doesn't say he will agree. It's Glaucon who speaks for Socrates, saying that he will agree, right? And a little later, Polemarchus came, and in other words, okay, this is clear. Again, it's it was only Socrates and um, Glaucon. Okay, that's clear now. Clear. It's Adeimantus comes with Polemarchus, Glaucon's brother, and Nicias' son. Okay, and Nicias is a statesman. I think this is one of the statesmen who, again, I think this is Nicias, one of the enemies or opponents of. Okay, I'm completely right. Um, Nicotritus is Nicias' son. That Nicias is the Nicias of Athenian policy. He's a aristocratic. He's a pro-aristocratic faction. He is for the moderate position of the war. He is opposes both first Cleon and then later Alcibiades. Right. He's the one who will go to fight, take over the Alcibiades adventure, and die in Syracuse. Right. Therefore, the Syracusan adventure plays a big backdrop of the apology in a sense. Because remember, the relationship between Alcibiades and Socrates. So now we get so therefore Adeimantus, Glaucon's brother, and Nicias, and some others apparently from the parade work with Polemarchus. Now Polemarchus named Polemarchus war lover, right? That's the famous by what's his name, Leon Craig's the war lover, right? This is um, the name of Polemarchus, spirited one. His name is that thing. Um, that's why it's going to be interesting with how he changes the argument later in that sense. So a little later came Polemarchus, and also came Adeimantus, Glaucon. So therefore, it was only the Socrates came down with Glaucon. It was Socrates and Glaucon going down to the festival to see it. No one else, and the other people will come there because of uh, Polemarchus seeing Socrates, sends a slave to grab him, to hold him, stop him. He comes to them and meet him. Now the slave will. Socrates does not agree to this. Does not. It's Glaucon who agrees. We'll certainly wait. And then what happens is a little later, a little bit of time, then all of a sudden Polemarchus came, and then with Polemarchus comes Adeimantus, Nicotritus, and the rest, right? Then Polemarchus said, Socrates, you folks seem to be heading towards the city as though you're going away. That's not bad. That's not bad seeming. Socrates says, right? I said, Socrates. Um, did you see us? He said. How many of us there are? Of Socrates responds, of how could I not? Then either get stronger, than they are, or he said, or stay right here. So that's a threat. That's a you go, come here. You see how many I have? That's very interesting. Polemarchus actually says, look, I'm stronger than you. I want to see you two. Do you see us? See how many we are? This almost a kind of implied threat of I outnumber you, so get stronger, more of you guys, or stay here, right? But isn't something still left? I said that we persuade you that you ought to let us go. In other words, isn't there something left to do? Isn't that we try to persuade you to let us go, that you ought to let us go? In other words, instead of this me obeying, maybe I can try to persuade you to let me go. So, and I need to make an argument that allows me to go to this. Um, and you and do you have the power, he said, to persuade people who won't listen? Very good point. In other words, can you persuade people? Do you have the power to persuade people who won't listen? Implying that I'm not going to listen to you. No, 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 you're going to stay. Not at all, said Glaucon. So Glaucon even admits that you cannot persuade those who aren't going to listen. And the suggestion here is that Polemarchus and everyone else are not going to listen to him and going to force him to come here, right? And even Glaucon seems to be in on there because he's the one who even spoke for Socrates at the beginning, right? Then consider us people who aren't going to listen. Therefore, Polemarchus's argument is that of threat. I'm stronger than you. This will remind us. This is prefigured the just, the stronger, the argument of the stronger. Right. This is very much that in the beginning of the dialogue and the actions of Polemarchus sets forth the idea of, well, what if you don't have power doing something or even persuade. In other words, what power is persuasion if the person is not going to listen? But the power of persuasion requires you to open to listen. So it's not only the quality of your arguments, but the openness to listen to those arguments or to consider them. If the listener is not going to listen, then such arguments will not have any effect. And even Glaucon admits that. So then he says, consider us that. But then Adeimantus speaks up and said, now, Annapolis is basically changing the argument, changing the thing from Polemarchus's coercion to, don't you know that there was a torch race at night fall on the horse for the goddesses? And then Socrates, horses? Okay, that's something new. While they hold their torches, will they pass them to one another in a relay race on the horses, or how do you mean it? Polemarchus, that way. So all of a sudden, Adeimantus changes the kind of topic. Instead of being a threat, he appeals to Socrates' curiosity. Don't you know there's going to be a horse race? So there are going to be people holding torches on horses? And Socrates was curious. What's going to happen? How is this going to be done? Is it going to be like a torch race? They pass the torches around. He goes, and Adeimantus goes, exactly. That's the way. Socrates goes, that's something new, right? How are they going to do it, right? How do you mean this, right? He goes that way. They're going to also, said Polemarchus. So Polemarchus answers the answer to Socrates' question. Polemarchus interrupts with an answer saying, it's going to be that way. It's going to be the coursing of torches, right? You just said, and they're also going to have an all-night party that will be worth seeing. We're going to rouse ourselves up after dinner and see the all-night party and be with as many of the young people at it and talk with them. Just stay here. Don't do anything else. Okay. We're saying to Socrates, hey, listen, we're gonna eat dinner. It's going to be an all-night party, Socrates. It's going to be that thing. It's going to be an all-night party, all-night long party hardy, right? Socrates is going to be a party. They're going to be this horse race, a big spectacle, big party where all the young people are going to be there, and it's going to be worth seeing. All-night party that's worth, again, appealing to his curiosity. And not only that is that we're going to first arouse ourselves up after dinner. We're going to have dinner and see the all-night long party. And we'll be with many young people at it. There will be many young people at it, and we'll talk with them. Those appealing to Socrates' interest in educating the young, right? Appealing to all these young boys out there, young men, and that they're going to be able to talk with them and discuss things. Just saying, don't do anything else, right? And Glaucon said, it seems to be something one has got to stay for, right? Now, Socrates interrupts, right? This seems to be good because it has to be got to stay for. There's this spectacle, this party, this event, meeting all these people, doing this thing. It's something one has to stay for, right? Well, if it seems good, that's what one ought to do. Now the question is, this is Socrates. Socrates reply, well, if the agathon, they use the word agathon. If this is, I'm going to look at here. I'm going to hit the note here, and the good applied in this sense. The good is implied in the word seem, which would be used alone to indicate a decision, which a resolution of political assembly. In other words, the good that seems to be resolves it. The playful language of arrest, compulsion, and refusal to listen to reason here is replaced by a phrase suggesting consensus or compromise. So therefore, that's the whole point. This phrase will occur through the dialogue, right? The good is implied in the word seems, right? In other words, that it seems good. If this seems good, in other words, a good agathon, something beneficial, something not in terms of noble, beautiful, but agathon, good, beneficial in that sense. Then that's what we ought to do. So we went to Polemarchus' house and caught up there with Ulysses, Euthydemus, Polemarchus' brother, as well as Thrasymachus the Caledonian, and Cometes the Pantheon, and Cleitophon, Aristomenes' son. So let's stop. Let's look at the people who were there present. Uh, First is, of course, of Socrates. Two, Glaucon, Polemarchus, Annapolis, Nicodemus, right? Now we have what else? We have at the house, right? There's Lysias, Euthydemus, okay, Polemarchus' brother. It's going to be very interesting. As again, foreigner. So Lysias, I'm not sure Lysias is a foreigner or not. That's a play. Lysias will be another Socrates. I think even if Euthydemus may be another Socratic dialogue. Okay, as well as Thrasymachus the Caledonian, the foreigner. He's mentioned foreigner, right? Then another one, Carmetides the Panian. That's another foreigner. And Cleitophon, which I think is one of the Aristodemus, who's a friend of Socrates. Cleitophon will be very active in this, right? These are this, and and Polemarchus' father, Clifford, was also on side. So again, this is the dialogue. This is who's going to be present in the dialogue. So again, we'll state this. So Socrates, Glaucon, Polemarchus, Adamantus, then Lysias, Euthydemus, Thrasymachus, Cardassian, Cleitophon, and so 10. 10. Now listen, this is just 10 people in 10 books, okay? Maybe that's, 10 explicitly mentioned people in 10 books, but that's be too easy, right? Each book a person, but no, but it's the 10 is the number, right? 10. And we have this, but let's wrap it here. This is where the first thing ends. We'll stop here, and we'll go to the next one which will focus on the debate between Socrates and Cephalus.